Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily television news, broadcasting live and available on demand on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and the Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Thursday, November 10th, 2022. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm not Al Ferguson. I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, John Hayden. And this evening, we bring you the news of and perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ plus news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform and the television and radio model of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ plus community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ plus media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 37 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ plus and broader community.
Well, let's welcome anchor Jamaal L. Starks. He is a rare Miami native, also known affectionately as Porcelain. As a spiritual wellness consultant, he is an active member of the yogi community through the first and only Queer Yoga Club Miami. He is positioned as the vice president of the Impulse Chapter Miami, a member of the ballroom community through House of Gorgeous Gucci, a professional background boasting a 16-year aviation career that led him to oversee the flight operations of 2 major airlines. He's also a 17-year HIV plus thriver. He dedicated himself to lead by example that Black queer individuals are inherently worthy of living safe, healthy, and abundantly thriving lives without social conditioning. Welcome, Jamaal.
Thank you. Well, let's welcome anchor Peter Bisuito, an internationally known comedian, writer, producer, director, and actor, selling out shows in 5 countries, including his 2 sold-out shows at the Broward Center for the Performing Arts in Fort Lauderdale. During the pandemic, Peter wrote a play called Vent and Chester that was performed last fall to rave reviews and nightly standing ovations. He is now seeking investors to bring the show to a New York City stage. For more information and a synopsis on how you can visit the website at ventandchester.com. Let's welcome Peter Bisuito.
Thank you so much. Let's welcome anchor Nik Nak London. Nik Nak is a music artist known for his popular song Can't Take Me. He's the MC on Friday nights at the Escape Lounge nightclub, a legend in ballroom and a cast member from the YouTube series The Come Up Miami. Welcome, Nik Nak.
Thank you. Now let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro. An inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame, Gregg is the author of 8 books, including his latest, Fear of Muses, an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ plus and mainstream publications and websites. His movie review column called Screen Saver can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco's Bay Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Gregg, good evening and welcome.
Well, that was such a sweet intro. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the Queer News for today, Thursday, November 10th, 2022, National Vanilla Cupcake Day.
Yummy.
I feel like they had me in mind when they named it that.
You had me a cupcake.
Well, we've survived a hurricane. We have survived the midterms, and we're going to get more to those in a moment. But first, we begin by queering up South Florida and Florida with big news on our choral scene. Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida and the Fort Lauderdale Gay Men's Chorus merge into one of the world's largest gay men's choruses. South Florida is making history again. The gay choral movement can be linked to the very early days of the LGBTQ plus civil rights and the riots of Stonewall. Nearly 200 queer choruses exist today across the world. Gay men's choruses help propel the message of resistance and resilience to the broader world. A chorus is the living and sound embodiment of pride. South Florida has 3 LGBTQ plus chorus groups, including one in Miami-Dade County and 2 up here in Broward. 36 years ago, the South Florida chorus was formed. In 2010, the chorus split in different interests and directions. Well, today, the 2 organizations have announced they will merge. This news celebrates the career and now the retirement of the founding director of the Fort Lauderdale Gay Men's Chorus, Gary Keating. He is leaving a huge legacy of music, civil rights, and some of the most important moments in South Florida LGBTQ plus history. The One United Chorus starts on January 1st and will emerge as one of the world's largest and most important queer musical groups. The Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida will have more than 170 singers and will continue a legacy of world-class musical performances. Executive Director Mark Kent told Queer News Tonight, quote, "If we want unity in our community, we have to have unity." Well said. The results of the political world our LGBTQ plus lives in make our lives tough enough. This new unity can give our community the support it needs with the LGBTQ plus community's liberties under threat in this state and across the nation. We have decided to stand together in strength and sing to protect our future, end quote. The merging of the 2 organizations makes the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida one of the 5 largest LGBTQ plus choral organizations in America. GMCSF is under the direction of friend of the show, Gabe Salazar. FTL GMC's last concert will be their upcoming holiday performance on December 3rd. Keating is credited for organizing the Fort Lauderdale Chorus 36 years ago in 1986. It was the first gay performing arts organization in the state and one of the first in the nation. The FTL GMC will welcome some of the members of the GMCSF to sing a song with them at their final holiday concert on December 3rd at 8 p.m. at the United Church of Christ. The GMCSF will welcome members of the FTL GMC to join them for a song at their holiday concerts on Friday, December 16th, right here at Sunshine Cathedral, and on Sunday, December 18th at 7 p.m. at the Hard Rock Live Hotel in Hollywood, Florida. Hotspots Magazine Happening Out Television Network is a premier sponsor of the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida and will be broadcasting the entire holiday concert on Apple TV and other streaming platforms. You know, and I'm excited for this, and I'm a little bummed about it too, because I love that I live in a place that has 3 gay men's choruses. I've lived in places where we didn't have 1 gay men chorus within 500 miles of us. And so I think, I'm sure they're going to be great. You know, they're already great, but I'm a little sad because it's always so nice to, you know, have our abundant riches down here in South Florida, even though because it's not like we can share them with Oregon, you know, or actually we can because we're going to be streaming it. So tune in, Oregon.
I recall how, being of a certain age, I recall how important choruses were during the early days of the AIDS crisis and in the years that followed. It was like a support system for the members and as a source of kinship and uplift to the members of the LGBT community who needed some uplifting and stuff. So I think it's wonderful to have it. It really is. Does anybody here sing with any of the choruses?
You know, I wanted to audition for them a couple of months ago. I still do.
Okay.
I really do. Because singing has always been my weakest talent, but I'm good when it comes to singing with a group of people as opposed to just myself. So I'm going to audition for them soon. I will.
I sent them several Anita Bryant covers, but they didn't. They just didn't get back to me. Now you're a singer.
Singer and rapper.
And how hard is it going to be? Because you've got these 2 massive organizations. It's hard enough to get a band of like 5 people all in sync at one time.
Right?
Now you're looking at hundreds of people singing together. How hard is that going to be professionally to coordinate that kind of a merger in less than a month and a half?
Yeah, so the important thing is the experience. And from what I know about this group, they've been doing this quite a while. So that alone will help them prepare and be successful. And it's like nerves are normal. And that's what I tell everyone. Nerves are normal. So just get it out.
I'm just curious as to what the split was before.
That's some drama.
I want the tea. I want the tea.
I know.
We have him on the line.
I'm sure it involved potato salad and cats and you know, someone getting a solo outside of their octave.
And a lot of pearl clutching.
Oh, I would clutch my pearls, but then the audio guy would yell at me for hurting my microphone.
All right, queer up the USA view. Chicago becomes epicenter for racism and intolerance in the national LGBTQ plus community.
Fellas, you want to know the quickest way to get a man's attention? Just go in the back of the room and just go, yeah! One more time for the old blind lesbian in the back corner over there. Here we go, 1, 2, 3, go, yeah! There it is, baby. That's my little Afro pup. My mama call her my little billow pads. You should see me do my pots and pans. Lord, I whistle while I work. I'm so bushy down there, if I catch the cross.
Famed leather bar Touche will hold a town hall next week after coming under fire for hiring a ventriloquist who used a racist puppet of a black woman during the bar's 45th anniversary party. The ventriloquist, Jerry Halliday, introduced his puppet as Sister Girl and was captured on video speaking with a stereotypical black scent or voice that white and non-black performers use to imitate black people. Witnesses said he made jokes about loving watermelon, being on welfare, and having multiple kids. Several audience members walked out mid-performance, including a bartender who quit mid-shift. Chris Blow, a bartender of Touche, said he walked out in disgust over Halliday's performance. Blow said he immediately felt uncomfortable when Halliday, a white man, came on stage and pulled out a black puppet. A barrage of social media posts were made Wednesday calling out Touche for allowing the performance to happen. The black puppet was pictured in posters advertising the 45th anniversary celebration. Chuck Rodecker, the owner of Touche, said he and the bar leaders apologized profusely and sincerely for the performance. Also, in Chicago last week was the International Mr. Rubber competition. The winner of the title, Pussycat Pumera Onyx from South Florida, was the first member of the black community to win the title. While he received a lot of support from the producers of the event, the announcement of his win was met with significant backlash from many who claim the fetish community should only be represented by light-skinned individuals. Amidst the recent midterm elections, such incidents shed light on how people from disadvantaged communities are treated in some parts of the country.
No, you didn't. I said, sit your raggedy ass down. I'm going to explain something to you tonight. Now, when I was born, I was beautiful brown. When I grew up, I'm still brown. When I go in the sun, I'm brown. When I'm cold, I'm brown. Excuse me, shut the fuck up over there, Mr. Filthy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, you can kiss my motherfucking ass, bitch. I'll come and touch you, baby. Don't fuck with me, honey.
So this is a tough one because he looks a little older. Like, how old do you think he is?
I don't care how old he is.
Right, but in his generation, humor like that was more acceptable, and it's not now. You know what I mean? Like, I can understand both sides. Like, I mean, you have the most famous ventriloquist in the world is Jeff Dunham. He's got a black puppet named Sweet Daddy D, who's a black record producer, and he does the exact same thing. He speaks in a black accent, and he pokes fun of all the black stereotypes, and nobody blinks an eye with him. He also has other puppets where he pokes fun of, racial stereotypes, not just racial stereotypes, but group stereotypes, like, the gay community, things like that. So it's kind of like, then you have shows like South Park, and you have shows like Family Guy, who were created by white guys who always make fun of black people and Puerto Rican people and gay people. And so it's like, where do you draw the line? What's considered offensive these days and what's considered acceptable these days?
Well, this is the time and the moment to start showing people what is offensive, especially to black people, especially with a black person sitting right here. Like, this is the time. This is offensive. This is straight out, like, when you have people walking out of the crowd. Also, the owner apologized, but from what I know, they auditioned this man this way, and he did this already before going up there and doing this live in front of a crowd. So this is the perfect moment. This is the time to show that this is not acceptable. We don't accept this. This is not it.
And he's also performed there before too.
Well, yeah, and you, just to your point real quick, the puppet was featured on the poster advertising this. And I just look at that and I'm like, oh my God, that is literally every single stereotype. But I feel like I don't even know if he realized it was a stereotype or if he like really believes it. Like, cause like South Park, to your point, they are skewering people and they're pointing things out, but they're not meaningful about it. And I don't know, I just look at this puppet and the poster and I think maybe it was.
I'm not offended. And that's probably very unpopular being a black man. However, I would say a year ago, I would have been offended. I would have been extremely offended. But I'm in a different place now in my life where I don't identify with color. What you see on the outside is not who I am in a higher conscious form. And so I've had to learn to detach from things that would get me emotional. Because if I responded to everything, gay, faggot, punk, sissy, if I continue to respond to those type of things, can you imagine the type of life that I would live? So when I see that now, it would be a very angry life. And I have been there. I have been there, and I feel so free and liberated now. I look at that, and my prayers is for the people who are offended, so that they will.
It all depends. It also depends on if the humor is delivered in a disparaging way. If it's disparaging and if it's a real attack, then I can understand you being offended. People make fun of, the gay community all the time, as in jest, and I'm able to laugh at myself. People make fun of Italians. I'm able to laugh at myself. And again, it's just that humor is just getting so different in this day and age. It's so different. Things that were, I grew up with the Joan Rivers and the Eddie Murphys and the George Carlins and the Richard Pryors and the Andrew Dice Clay. Their entire acts were based on racist humor, racially motivated humor. And it was so accepted back then. It was just accepted as humor. It was accepted as comedy. But now it's like even comedy is just offensive to so many people these days.
But even in this instance, it's a black trans woman, and he even lifts up the dress to show the private parts in a gay setting. And so in that context, I'm wondering if he is intentionally doing, because he made it a point for it to be a black trans woman. So it's not like he's just picking at black people eating watermelon and being on welfare. He's being intentional about his jest, and he's being intentional about what he's saying. So I won't excuse this man based on because, sir, you are intelligent. You know exactly what the hell you are doing.
And then in terms of this bar, Touche, or as we fondly call it, Tushy, will most likely survive as it's one of only a handful of leather bars in a city as big as Chicago. And the thing is, it's also got a long history of being welcoming to all members, all stripes of the community. So they're probably going to come through this, but it was a bad thing. It was
based on the video that I saw. I will have to agree with you. It did seem a little bit disparaging to me.
Yeah,
it did.
And to your point about Jeff Dunham, and then there was another person that I saw. He won like America's Got Talent like way back in the day, but just because it was disgusting 40 years ago. I think now people are just able to stand up and say, no, this is disgusting and this is wrong. And I mean, I got to interview Joan Rivers once, so obviously she's not my best friend, but she was a wonderful interview, wonderful woman. I think she would have walked out on something like this. I don't think she would sit there and give her imprimatur to something like this.
She knew there was a line, and this man, he crossed that line for sure.
Right.
And the story also goes on to talk about the kink community being disparaging against, what's her name, Pussycat. Onyx.
Yeah, what's that all about?
Yeah.
He wasn't white. He wasn't white enough. Like his skin was too dark.
His skin was too dark in order for him to win. And I mean, we also have to talk about colorism also in this country or worldwide as well. Like, there's a problem with colorism. If your skin is too dark, there's a problem. If you don't represent well, or they think you don't represent well, there is an issue. And that has to be addressed. Like, certain things, now that people are having a voice and addressing these things and having a backbone to actually stand up for who they are and say, you know what, this is not acceptable. I think this is the perfect time for them to have a town hall meeting and discuss these things.
And that would be my point. You know, people are so attached to the color, social economic status, and that alone starts the different type of wars. That's why now we see Putin and all these other people fighting, because they're so attached to the material makeup of things. And I had to detach from that. So.
Yeah, and we have to look ahead to where this conversation is going. To your point, because if we can learn something from it, if having the conversation, because I mean, if this is the first black person to win Mr. Rubber, well, that's progress in itself. And if people want to talk about it, and even if it starts in a disparaging way, if we're at least getting to the conversation, we're getting a winner and we're getting the conversation that no one's wanted to have, then I think that could be a positive that comes out of this.
Right. At least we're finally drawing a line and showing a boundary and sticking boundaries in the sand and being like, you know what, this shit is not right.
And one last thing for me, we must do that within our own community as well. You know, I'm not going to hold a person who's not black more accountable than I am the own community. And you see within the community that there's such a disconnect and separation. So I can't personally be offended by stuff that I see my own community doing.
Well, I'm not a black man, but you can hold me anytime. All right.
Well, let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Pride of Americas announces Boy George and a whole lot more. All party buffs are invited to join Pride of the Americas featuring Boy George from February 10th to the 12th, 2023. People from Alaska to Argentina will be visiting for the very first Pride of Americas festival on sunny Fort Lauderdale Beach. Greater Fort Lauderdale is famous for its 23 miles of Blue Wave certified beaches. Each year, millions of visitors come for the sun and fun. The inaugural Pride of the Americas will be unlike any Pride festival you've attended. Most Pride of Americas 2023 events will be held on or near pristine beaches and signature waterways. Guests will have many opportunities to discover why Fort Lauderdale is known as the Venice of America. Pride of the Americas 2023 will culminate with a parade down scenic Gay 1A, Route A1A, along the beach, followed by a massive beach party featuring internationally recognized performers, including Boy George. Celebrate the first Pride of Americas on sun-kissed beaches. Not only is Greater Fort Lauderdale a premier tourist destination, but it is also a diverse and welcoming community with one of the largest concentrations of LGBTQ+ households in the nation. Greater Fort Lauderdale is a community that celebrates diversity and inclusion in each and every way, each and every day, where pride is the daily way. Regardless of the midterm elections, Florida strives to lead a vibrant, inclusive, and diverse life, especially when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community. Well, I mean, this is amazing. The pride of I put the emphasis on it. I mean, it's our city, it's our town.
I gotta say, we probably live in one of the most freaking exciting cities in the world.
Yeah.
Fort Lauderdale always has something going on. I just went up north to visit my folks. They live in Rochester, New York. And as much as I love Rochester, it's my hometown. I was there for 4 days, and I'm like, geez, I'm freaking bored. There's like nothing going on in this. Fort Lauderdale is effing awesome.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff going on, like this event here, you know?
And was there already 10 feet of snow in
No,
Rochester when you were
like it was.
there?
I brought the weather up with me.
Because we don't get
It was
snow.
70 degrees all weekend.
Well, and it's nice to see, it's nice to, in spite of his recent, run-ins, it's nice to see Boy George around. I had the pleasure of interviewing him a number of years ago, and he was quite delightful, but I understand there might be some...
Did he really want to hurt you?
Tie you to
And there's that.
No, he didn't offer to do it.
But this was supposed to happen 3 years ago. This was originally scheduled for
right?
April of 2020. And I had already written thousands of words about this event. And then I was like, I still get paid, right? I still get paid for my work. But so this has not only been 3 years, a year in the making. This has been like 5 years in the making because we've been looking forward and trying to host this. I'm excited about it. I'm nervous about it because our beaches are beautiful, but that strip of land, I mean,
a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, and there's not a lot of ingress and egress to the beach. So it's like, if you can get a hotel if you're watching this, if you can get a hotel on the ocean, pay the extra money. You'll be really glad you did. And I saw Boy George about 4 or 5 years ago at Broward Center. He and Culture Club, and I was just like, I mean, they sounded great. I was disappointed because I was really hoping that he and John Moss would get into a fight during the show, or someone
lovers'
refused to come out of their bathroom. It didn't happen, but it was still a great show. Yeah. Are you a Culture Club fan?
I am not going to say that I'm not. But I'm very fluid now lately. So it's
Well, they only had like 2 hits, didn't they?
I'm very music.
They
No.
had a lot of...
I just
They
know
had
2
more.
songs.
Like music, I'm just very...
Do you really want to hurt me? I'll trouble for you.
Karma
I'm a
Chameleon.
chameleon.
It's a miracle.
Yes.
Chameleon's my favorite.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They had a
had a
lot of good ones.
That's my favorite
Okay.
song.
I'd loan you my cassette tape, but I doubt you have the media player to play it on.
You'd be surprised.
And also, Broward County, we're the only blue down here now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, excuse me, West Palm Beach, I'm sorry. But there's 5 counties that are blue. And that's Orlando, Leon County near Tallahassee because of FSU and FAMU, the adjacent one, and Broward County and West Palm Beach. And so, I mean, come on down, diversity, inclusion.
Yes.
We're blue. We're blue.
We are blue.
We are not the rest of Florida.
We are your safe space.
We are your safe
Yes.
space.
Yes, we are.
But now let's queer up politics. The Civil War ended on November 8th, 2022, as voters finally ended slavery. Congratulations, Tennessee. We're still absorbing Tuesday's midterm elections, which everyone, Democrats and Republicans alike, seems to agree didn't go quite as expected. It wasn't a great night for either party, although it wasn't a terrible one either. Rovember, not so much. Red Wave, definitely not that either. Tennessee voters officially banned all forms of slavery by approving a ballot measure to remove involuntary servitude as a form of punishment for people convicted of crimes. According to the Secretary of State's office, the measure passed by 80%. The 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution also includes a provision allowing for involuntary servitude of those convicted of a crime. Many critics have pointed out that this forced prison labor is the same as slavery. Alabama, Oregon, and Vermont also voted this week to ban it in their states. Forced prison labor is still used in Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi, and Texas. So it was so horrible to see Arkansas up there because that's where I'm originally from.
Wow.
And I remember when I moved to Florida, they would say, oh, blacks live there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We definitely do. But this is, unfortunate that in 2022, we are still dealing with some form of slavery. And, I just hope that we get to a point where we just wake up. And I feel like all of these different things that are happening is intended to challenge us to stand up, to be more vocal, like all of the different movements that we see. And we just got to be vigilant.
Yeah.
And vote. Because what was that, 80% voted for this? So that's not a lot, but that's still.
I'm more concerned that 1 in 5 are still in favor of this. That's the most concerning part.
Well, Tennessee is a BYOB state. That's bring your own banjo. But it is nice.
I didn't know where that was going.
but it's nice to see that along with Alabama and Oregon and Vermont, that they've finally entered the 20th, not to mention the 21st century.
I don't find this to be appealing to me at all, that it took how many years for slavery to be shot down on the ballot? I don't find it to be appealing
like
at all.
400 and some years,
It's like
not so good at math, but yes.
For real, it's 2020.
Too long.
It's way too long.
But that carve out in the amendment is one of the things that actually helped pass it, because the Civil War amendments were in danger of being stalled even without having to get Southern votes. But it was quickly leveraged, and I'm sure and I'm sure a lot of people in the Black community know that it was leveraged by segregationists when we hit the 1880s and 1890s, when they started passing the Jim Crow laws. And they were like, all right, back in slavery, you jaywalked? All right, you can do 10 days of hard labor, and it's just gone downhill ever since.
And that's been leveraged into the school to prison pipeline for Black folks, and so that just shows, especially with the disparate. There's a documentary by. Is it Ava DuVernay? I can't remember. But the
13th?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. The 13th. That is a great documentary which would break all of this down for anybody who's watching that will understand how we got from slavery to the school to prison pipeline and why this is so important and why it's yesterday too late as well.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And now we're going to queer up South Florida and Florida. Ron De-Sanctimonious Florida win is a terrible omen for LGBTQ plus Americans.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much. Over these past 4 years, we've seen major challenges for the people of our state, for the citizens of the United States, and above all, for the cause of freedom. We saw freedom in our very way of life and so many other jurisdictions in this country wither on the vine. Florida held the line.
In the U.S. midterm elections, Ron DeSantis was reelected as Florida governor with 59% of the vote. As America speculates on who will throw their hat in the ring for the Republican nomination for the 2024 presidential elections, DeSantis' success is worrying the queer community. It seems certain that Trump will announce a 2024 run, and although DeSantis has cautiously avoided the question, he is widely seen as Trump's most powerful rival. Following the elections, DeSantis is in a better position than ever. In fact, Trump feels so threatened that he issued a warning to DeSantis on the day of the elections, saying that he would reveal things about the Florida governor that won't be very flattering should he run for president. But threats from Trump are unlikely to be enough to stop DeSantis, and a DeSantis presidency would be a terrifying prospect for LGBTQ plus Americans. As Florida governor, DeSantis' most notorious anti-LGBTQ plus move was the passage of a Florida law that prevents the discussion of LGBTQ plus topics in schools, dubbed the Don't Say Gay law. Last year, he signed the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, banning trans girls and women in the state from competing in sports competitions in middle school, high school, and college. In April, he signed the Stop Woke Act, heavily restricting how workplaces, schools, and colleges can teach about racism, homophobia, and other systemic biases. Well, clearly it was one of Trump's minions who came up with De-Sanctimonious, because that's far too many syllables for Donald Trump. And as for Governor Death Sentence, which is a name I prefer, and his lovely wife Casey, Casey, I for one would love to know what kind of unflattering things Trump has on them. What is the tea?
Yeah.
What's the tea?
So this is one of those situations. I used to be offended, again, going back to that, by everything that Ron DeSantis did. And I would have said that I'm not a huge fan of anything that he's doing, especially the Don't Say Gay, obviously growing up as a gay individual. However, what I am hoping comes from this is that more people will come out and they will do a much better job at voting. This is just a clear indication to me of what's happening in Florida, that we're not there yet. We have not made the progress that we needed to make, and that we must continue to fight, and more vocal people need to step up and be visible and have a message that connects with the people.
Yeah. I think for the next election, I think everybody in Michigan should move to Florida.
And Illinois, and places where they don't need those blue votes. Come here. Yeah. We need those blue votes.
Yeah. There's not much nice things that I could say on here. That
We're not here to say nice things.
Okay, good. Because I've got something to say.
My language will be bleep, bleep, bleep.
South Parkish.
Like that.
Sound like an old internet connection.
A dial-up from AOL. But with Ron DeSantis, to your point, I think the same thing. Maybe this is the time that people will actually wake up. Maybe after some things get passed, certain liberties that people take for granted, especially with us in the LGBTQ plus community. Like, where the hell were y'all at the polls? Come on now.
Yeah, and you know, the red wave was in Florida. I mean, I knew Ron DeSantis was going to win. I knew it wasn't going to be a late night. I did not imagine an 18 to 20 point blowout. And we are officially a red state. Both chambers of the legislature are now super majorities, which means basically Democrats can go there, you know, eat their per diem and go home, because there's literally nothing they can do. But Ron DeSantis's message didn't really resonate outside of Florida, at least into the purple states. You know, I mean, Louisiana elected a Republican senator. Well, big surprise there. But one thing out of this, talking about like what did you say? It was the pink splash or something like that, is that Utah Senator Mike Lee, incumbent, rather well liked, only got 55% of the vote in his state. And his main opponent wasn't even a Democrat. It was a no party affiliation. Right. So I think there are a lot of people around the country in purple states and light red states that are going to reject this message if we come out with our own right message. It's not just hating Trump was enough to get Biden into office in 2020. But in 2024, we're going to have a candidate, or not a candidate, a message that not only for Biden, but for our Senate candidates, for our House representatives, because it looks like the House, while it's going to go Republican, is going to still be very narrow. So we could retake that in a national election. So it's going to be interesting to watch the next 2 years. Florida, it was a red bloodbath. But the rest of the country, it could have been a lot worse. And we're going to get to some of that in a couple minutes. But first, let's go to church.
Next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. with more than 30,000 watching every week.
I'm Michael Reardon, the Director of Marketing for Compass Community Center, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Queer up LGBTQ plus civil rights. Here is what midterm results mean for LGBTQ plus rights. If you're anything like us, you've been dreading the midterm elections. Dissatisfaction with the Democratic Party has increased steadily in the past 2 years, with more centrist voters arguing that the party has gone too extreme, and more left voters frustrated that the party refuses to go far enough. In light of that, there was much talk of a red wave in which Republican candidates anticipated sweeping elections nationwide and taking back control of Congress. But as Time magazine eloquently phrased it, the so-called red wave was more of a pink splash for those of us who are slight election doomers. The Democrats' relative success nationwide came as a pleasant surprise. Despite nonstop ableism against him, Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman won his Senate race, flipping that seat from red to blue and beating the Trump-backed conspiracy theorist, Dr. Oz. LGBTQ plus candidates also won big last night, leading to a number of crucial re-election and many historic firsts, including our first lesbian governor, yay! The first trans man to serve on a state legislature, and several LGBTQ plus people elected to Congress for the very first time in their respective states. Greg Landsman of Ohio has always supported move to raise the first pride flag over City Hall in 2019. And he's spoken out against anti-LGBTQ plus bills as well. He won the race with 52.5% of the vote. Yay.
Yeah, this is great news.
Yeah.
Like I said before the break, that it wasn't the disaster that we all, I think, were braced for. And I went to bed, I saw the numbers, I went to bed on election night, like around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I was like, it's Schrodinger's cat. As long as I don't open the box, and I can pretend that the cat is still alive. And when I woke up in the morning, damn it, the cat was still alive.
Still alive.
Well, and it's not that surprising with Healy in Massachusetts. I mean, Massachusetts is, it's a very progressive and open state. And it was nice to see that Oz got a house dropped on him.
Well, I'm concerned about some things that we talk about. The lesbian governor of Massachusetts. We're going to get to another one that was like, we got a twofer on the night. But the New York race for governor was much closer than it should have been. Mm-hmm. The race in Oregon was much closer than it should have been for states that are this deeply blue. But the Reds also, like Kentucky, they overwhelmingly approved an abortion. They basically voted for abortion rights. I'm not going to get into the legal back ways, but it was an odd night for both parties, I believe.
Yeah, it definitely was.
And Missouri got marijuana legal.
They did. I know, right?
I love it.
If I didn't already have my card, I'd be heading up to Mississippi.
Bring it on east of the Mississippi. Bring it on over this way.
Yep.
Well, now let's queer up gay culture. Here are the photos of cute guys showing off the I voted stickers. All across the nation, Americans cast votes in one of the most historic midterm elections of our time. Not only was there a huge early voting turnout, but there were a record number of LGBTQ plus candidates up and down the ballot this year. Of course, one of our favorite parts about Election Day, aside from participating in our democracy, are those cute little I voted stickers they hand out after you cast your ballot. We wear those babies with pride. The internet, and especially Instagram, is flooded with guys sharing I voted post stickers on their bodies. Some are flaunting their I voted t-shirts, and some have painted the words flexed on their muscles. However, overall, the vibe is positive. The November 2022 midterm elections were crucial in many ways, especially for LGBTQ plus community. While some state governments are not hesitating to curb gay rights, several LGBTQ plus Americans made history Tuesday night with election wins across the United States. Among them are Becca Balint, who will become the first out gay person and the first woman to represent Vermont in Congress, and Maura Healey, who was elected by Massachusetts voters to become the U.S. first out lesbian governor. There are many such examples. Their wins come amid an increase in anti-LGBTQ plus legislation across the country, particularly bills targeting transgender rights and gender-affirming health care. So despite what we have here in Florida, our red wave in Florida, across the country, I mean, we had huge wins. Massachusetts, Oregon, and those are just the few that we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
Well, it's the Northeast, it's the Northwest, the South. Somehow, I mean, look what happened in Georgia. I mean, the South just somehow keeps tripping over itself.
Well, they're going to a runoff for the Senate seat.
Well, I'm talking about Kemp beating Abrams.
Yeah, well,
That's
we knew that was going to happen.
enough
Why is
already.
this at a runoff, though? Herschel Walker.
I know, the head injury.
You have to get 50% plus one.
But I mean,
Yeah, but who are these people voting for him? Who are they?
Are we seriously?
It doesn't matter how horrible the candidate is. These people are going to vote Republican just to keep them in power.
Exactly.
So, you know, they can go out and strangle an old lady. Nobody cares. They're still going to vote for him.
And supposedly the largest number of his voters were white men.
Well, did
Because they don't
Herschel
want-
Walker play for the Minnesota Vikings?
I don't.
And if so, do you think Lizzo voted for him? Long way to go for that joke. Long way to go.
That Marjorie, I mean, come on.
I know.
Yeah, well, you know, she's just coast on sex appeal.
Really?
To whom?
Oh yeah, she's
To who?
a hottie. But we'll move on, staying with the theme and Queer Up the USA view. Not so good news for the LGBTQ plus community as New York gay Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney loses in a shocker. Out gay Representative Sean Patrick Maloney had lost his re-election campaign. The not so powerful head of the Democratic Congressional Campaign, or the DCCC, is ending his time in Congress after a decade. Maloney lost to challenger New York State Assembly member Michael Lawler. With almost all the precincts in, Maloney only got 49.4% of the vote to Lawler, who got 50.6%. Maloney has conceded defeat. He positioned himself as a centrist Democrat, and faced an uphill battle in New York's newly drawn 17th congressional district. He faced criticism before the primaries for choosing to run in the district, which other Democrats saw as an easy win, considering President Joe Biden won it by 10 points just 2 years ago. Maloney defended his decision by noting that he lives in the 17th. Representative Mondaire Jones, who is currently representing New York's 17th and is one of the first gay and black members of Congress, chose not to face Maloney and instead ran in the primary in the 10th congressional district, where he also lost. Lawler benefited from help from outside Republican groups, and according to CNN, the Congressional Leadership Fund poured an estimated $6 million into his election. And that's a lot of money. But, you know, I kind of blame the Democrats for this. And New York, I don't know if they're one of those states that has to like fairly draw their thing or whatever, but the Democrats should have never allowed this to happen. They should have gotten everybody in a room back in April or May and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. You're going to get a diplomatic post in the country of your choice. You're going to run in this district. You're going to run in this district. The Democrats are too hands off. The Republicans, we say, meddle and overreach. But you know what? They win. So the Democrats need to follow up on that.
Well, they overreach and they spend that money that they just keep funding. They keep funneling into these, to these politicians. It's unbelievable. That's what it takes. It's all about money.
Yeah, because there are a lot of people with money. They are pushing their own agenda, and they are leveraging these politicians. And it is very true that the Democrats need, in all capital letters, exclamation marks, a better strategy.
They need to get the Republican strategy. I actually respect. I'm neither left nor right or whatever, because I don't believe in this government. Period. But but they need to implement let's do it at all costs. Let's do this at all costs, because that's what they do. Lie, steal, strategize, and lie. What's wrong with that? Democrats want to be so moral all the time. It gets on my nerves. It really, really does. It gets on my nerves.
And the truth of the matter, they're not that moral.
Exactly.
Now it's queer politics.
Aren't we already?
I think we are. So much. All right, the red wave never materialized. Only thing red is Trump and McCarthy's face. Although counting was still underway in the 2022 midterm elections, voters delivered a series of firsts for members of the LGBTQ community nationwide. Among the winners elected to office are first-time members of Congress, transgender trailblazers, and lesbian governors. The wins in local and national races alike comes on the heels of midterm elections shaped in part by debates over LGBTQ rights. The Human Rights Campaign, the nation's largest LGBTQ plus civil rights organization, held the victory of at least 10 pro-equality, openly LGBTQ plus members of the House of Representatives Equality Caucus, a record. Those members are Becca Belland, David Cicilline, Angie Craig, Sharice Davids, Robert Garcia, Chris Pappas, Mark Pocan, Eric Sorensen, Mark Takano, and Richie Torres. When the new congressional term begins in January, these House members will join openly LGBTQ plus senators Tammy Baldwin and Kirsten Sinema in Congress. Votes are still being counted in California and Oregon. Here are some of the notable LGBTQ plus victories in the country.
U.S. Representative Sharice Davids, the first gay Native American in Congress and the only Democrat in Kansas's congressional delegation, has been reelected. In Kansas's 3rd congressional district, she had 55% of the vote, while Republican challenger Amanda Adkins had about 43%.
Maura Healey made history on Election Day, becoming the first woman to be elected governor of Massachusetts and the first openly lesbian governor in U.S. history. Healey won the gubernatorial race against Republican Jeff Deal. Governor Charlie Baker, a Republican, decided not to seek re-election. Healey was the first openly gay attorney general elected in the country in 2014.
LGBTQ plus candidates have made history across the country in this year's midterms. As states' legislators continue to pass anti-LGBTQ plus legislation, pro-equality state representatives have become some of the most pivotal defenders of LGBTQ plus rights. Even in states where legislatures are not repeatedly attacking LGBTQ plus rights, representation is crucial. State legislatures make countless decisions that affect the day-to-day lives of their people in their states. And who better to speak for LGBTQ people than LGBTQ plus people?
Absolutely. The U.S. midterm elections saw a fink of the Minnesota Democratic Farm Labor Party, basically the Democrats in Minnesota. He won 81% of the vote to Republican Trace Johnson's 18% for his district's 66A seat. She ran on a strong platform for several crucial issues, including racial justice, supporting a statewide equality rights amendment, and explicit protections for trans and gender nonconforming young people, among other issues.
Two-term Long Beach Mayor Robert Garcia has become the first out LGBTQ immigrant elected to Congress. He will represent California's 42nd district. He immigrated to the United States at age 5. He holds an MA from the University of Southern California.
James Rosner has become the first out trans man ever to be elected to a state legislature in the United States. Rosner, a 26-year-old Democrat, won New Hampshire's 22nd State House District Ward 8. According to his bio, he lives in Concord, New Hampshire with his wife and cat.
Colorado Democrat Jared Polis, the first out gay man elected governor of any U.S. state, is now the first one reelected. His win was largely expected. Polis first elected governor in 2018 as a former congressman and entrepreneur. He is married to Marlon Reese. Their wedding in 2021 was the first same-sex wedding of a sitting U.S. governor.
Democrats now control both chambers of the Michigan State House, the governorship, the Attorney General seat, and the Secretary of State seat. And the right to abortion will be enshrined in the state constitution. It's a big sigh of relief for LGBTQ plus people. Dana Nessel, the out lesbian who won re-election as Michigan's Attorney General, wasted no time reaching out directly to those kids in a tweet Tuesday night.
Gen Z voters turned out in record numbers Tuesday And in the Orlando area, Florida's congressional 10th district, they voted one of their own into the U.S. Congress. Maxwell Frost became the very first member of Gen Z to go to the House of Representatives.
Voters in Texas added to the diversity of their state legislature on Tuesday, tripling the number of openly gay Black lawmakers holding office and electing the first 2 Muslim lawmakers to serve in the Capitol. Until May, there were no openly gay Black members of the legislature. Representative Jolanda Jones became the first when she won a special election that month.
Tina Kotek has been declared the winner of the Oregon governor's race, meaning that 2 states have elected out lesbian governors. Kotek, a Democrat, had been in a close race with Republican Christine Drazan to succeed term-limited Governor Kate Brown, also a Dem, and the nation's first out bisexual governor.
Eric Sorensen has won his race to represent Illinois District 17 in the House of Representatives, making him the state's first out LGBTQ plus person elected to Congress. The former meteorologist beat out far-right Republican Esther Joy King and celebrated his victory in a statement saying he is honored to have been elected.
Democrat Eric Russell has won his election for Connecticut Treasurer, making him the first Black gay statewide office holder in the U.S. A partner at the law firm Pullman and Comley, Russell ran on a platform that included responsible debt management to protect Connecticut's bond rating, increasing the funded ratio of the state's pension funds, and more.
Those are some sexy issues. Democrat Becca Balint is the winner of Vermont's single congressional district. She is the first woman and the first LGBTQ plus person elected to Congress from that state. With 72% of precincts reporting Tuesday night, Balint had 61.5% of the vote, while her opponent, Liam Madden, had a sad below 30%, 28.8%. Boo-hoo.
Openly, LGBTQ plus members play key roles in promoting, advancing, and eventually passing critical legislation, like the Equality Act and the Respect for Marriage Act during the 117th Congress. Their fight to expand civil rights at the federal level and prevent our progress from being rolled back comes at a time when state legislature across the country have introduced more than 350 anti-LGBTQ plus bills. Politicians like Sharice Davids, Mara Healey, Leah Fink, Robert Garcia, Dana Nessel, and others are keeping the fire alive and ensuring America becomes and remains a progressive country that values equality and freedom over anything.
So much to take in from that little rapid fire round of things. A couple things I noted. First off, congratulations to the Oregon governor. You're the second elected lesbian governor only because you're 3 time zones away from the first elected lesbian governor. So good on you for that. One thing that when we talk about women's rights and women's reproductive health rights, and that does affect all parts of the L, the G, the B, the T, the Q community. While we made some progress, it was affirmatively banned in one state. Kentucky and Kansas have said, no, we're not going to ban it in the Constitution, but the legislature can. But the thing is that now abortion is on the ballot every single election. If Michigan decides to swing red at some point in the future, abortion's gone. And then it's going to come back. The reason that the Supreme Court decisions are so important because it sets unity. If the Republicans had their way, there'd be no abortion, there'd be no marriage equality. But, if you lived in New York and you went to visit your parents, you and your husband went to visit your parents in Texas, then you're unmarried for a couple weeks. And while that may appeal to a lot of couples, just taking a little break, we were on a break. It's not a good plan, and it's no way to run a country.
Absolutely dangerous. I mean, it just feels like there's a lot of pressure on these newly elected people as well. I mean, we're pinning a lot of hopes on these people, and I'm sure they're up to the task, and I hope they're up to the task.
I think representation right now is just important, especially as we see what I keep saying is these older generations need to be afraid of the Gen Zers. They need to be afraid of these 26 years old, 26 years old. That is just beautiful. And They see what's going on. They're not blind, they're not idiots, they're not stupid, and they are the next to come up into power, and they're going to vote these old craps out and change legislation in this country and change the movement and the direction of this country. So that's a fair warning, because they keep bringing up these things, but these kids, they don't care about, you know, reproductive rights and things. They want to live free, authentic, healthy lives, and they're going to push for it.
And, you know, I got to meet and interview Maxwell Frost over the summer at the LGBTQ Democratic Caucus meeting here in Fort Lauderdale. He's not a member of the community, but my God, he is an amazing ally. And even more importantly, he is an amazing speaker. I mean, I've been covering politics, among other things, for 25 years. Rarely have I sat in a room where I'm just like, oh, I'm so over. No, I was focused on every word he said. And after I talked, I got him outside afterwards, and we were talking a little bit, and his enthusiasm just never stopped. Like, he didn't even take a breath to hang out with me. He was just like, boom, 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 going. And the way he communicates with people, he's from Central Florida, which is important, really, in Florida, because that comes from, if you're from that area, you get a lot more of Florida than you do living down here in our blue bubble. And, you know, if he is going to be, he's going places. He's going places beyond the Congress. He is going to be, he could be in the Senate in a few years. I'm just so excited to follow his career.
We're lucky to have him, for sure.
I even see these newer generations reaching across boundaries outside of the United States as like international ambassadors and spokespeople, because I think a lot of, especially Floridians, live in a bubble where they think this is it, this is the all in all, and also some of America thinks they live in such a bubble that they forget that there are other parts of the world, there are other people who support LGBTQ, Black, and all of these progressive ideas. There are other places in the world that exist other than this, and you are the minority in this.
For sure.
We're making progress.
Yes. That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates and share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these stories for LGBTQ plus people in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm John Hayden, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Jamaal L. Starks, Peter Bisuito, Nik Nak London, and Gregg Shapiro, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end our show, we have one final interview, and it's about the Miami Book Fair. And Gregg, this one's particularly special to you.
It is very special because I will be on a panel at the book fair on the 19th. So we're going to queer up the big interview. The Miami Book Fair is here. Find out more and meet Shelley Wong. Queer News Tonight would love you to know that Miami Book Fair annual book fair and literary festival is back. The festival runs November 13th through 20th and will be attended by reputed authors from across the world, talking books and discussing new works. We at Happening Out Network invite you all to be a part of it. Hit downtown Miami to listen and participate in conversations with TV's Billy Porter, filmmaker John Waters, and playwright and actor Harvey Fierstein. Enjoy the 350 writers and poets participating in the 39th Miami Book Fair, including Jack Parlett talking about Fire Island, James Kirchick discussing the hidden history of gay Washington, and Rashid Newson shares his personal and political awakening of a young gay Black man in the 1980s New York City. We insist you join the conversation at Miami Book Fair Street Fair weekend on November 19th and 20th. And while you do that, do not forget to shake a leg in the music event on the off-the-shelf stage. More details are available at miamibookfair.com. In anticipation of the fair, Queer News Tonight anchor Al Ferguson recently sat down with award-winning poet Shelley Wong, who will be sharing her poems at a special book fair event that will also include me, Gregg Shapiro.
Well, let's talk everything Miami Book Fair. Shelley Wong's debut poetry collection, As She Appears, came out earlier this year from Yes Yes Books and has been longlisted for the 2022 National Book Award. She lives in San Francisco. As She Appears foregrounds queer women of color in their being and becoming. Following the end of a relationship that was marked by silence, a woman crosses over and embodies the expanse of desire and self-love. Other speakers transform the natural world and themselves, using art and beauty as a means of sanctuary and subversion. With both praise and precision, Wong considers how women inhabit and remake their environment. The ecstatic joys of pride dances and a late-night Chinatown meal, conversations with Frida Kahlo, trees that burst into glamour, and layers of memory permeate the poems in this book as they travel through suburban California, perfumed fashion runways to a Fire Island summer. Wong writes in the space where so many do not appear as an invitation for queer women of color to arrive in love exactly as they were meant to be. Shelley Wong, welcome to Queer News Tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're very excited to have you. It allows me to help explore poetry and queer poetry, which we don't often talk about, and we should talk more about it. So congratulations, first off, on coming to the Miami Book Fair. I understand this is going to be your first participation in Miami Book Fair.
Yes, and it's the culmination of my year-long tour, so it's going to be a big celebration, and I'm so excited.
Yeah. The Miami Book Fair, as our viewers know, is the largest of its kind in the United States, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 authors and writers are going to be present. A very rich and diverse program. And of course, Queer News Tonight and Happening on Television Network and Hotspots Magazine are happy to sponsor and participate because it has the richest LGBT content stream of any book fair in the entire world. And we're thrilled about that. And of course, Shelley Wong participates in it. So first off, let's get right to it. Debut poetry collection. You've written many individual published pieces, but this is your first poetry collection, As She Appears. Tell us about that process and about poetry for women for color, queer women of color. Tell us about the process of what went into the creation of this work.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. So I'm a 42-year-old debut poet. So the book itself took a decade to write, but really I see the writing reflects the expanse of my entire life. I touch on every decade of my life. I always wanted to be a writer since I was a very avid reader as a child. But the writing, I would say, really began in the aftermath of a long-term queer relationship, which led to very soon thereafter, me entering graduate school in my early 30s. And in that 3-year program at Ohio State, I developed the seeds for what would become this collection of poems. And some books, they have like a single focus or a theme or a set of imagery or a single place that they devote the book to. But mine really travels through place, through time. And I was writing the poems I wanted to have as a younger person. I was writing the poems speaking to my past relationship because I wasn't fully out during the relationship. So I think I wanted to process and honor that long-term relationship which began in youth in order to show and share and explore a young relationship between two young queer women of color, in this case Asian women. Since I didn't have that literature when I was young, I didn't have those poems, really as an offering to myself and to younger women, younger people of color, to show a little bit of that struggle, but also that joy, and searching after the relationship in order to show queer women of color in their playfulness and joy, but also in solitude and consideration in the world, in nature, as a collective sort of joy and sisterhood.
I'm curious, as she appears, you must be thrilled, your first debut collection, and you're nominated for the National Book Award. November 16 in New York City, the winner of the National Book Award is going to be announced, and you're in contention for that. And then you come to the Miami Book Fair fresh from that on November 19, and you're going to participate with a bevy of writers, poets, authors, that were nominated for the National Book Award. There are 50 nominees, and 31 of you are going to be represented at the Miami Book Fair. That is just breathtakingly astounding of how much talent is going to be in the room at one time. The announcement of your debut writing achievement being nominated for National Book Award, what was your reaction when you heard that news?
I was absolutely stunned. So it's a little bit of a two-part process. So in late September, they announced the 10 long list authors per category, and then in October, the 5 finalists. So I was longlisted, so I didn't make the finalist cut, but I'm extremely happy and honored to be longlisted, as you say, for a debut, which is an incredible, rare, just, I'm still processing the honor to be among authors of, extreme longevity and heroes of mine is an absolute thrill. It's also very special that I'm on a small press, Yes Books, and this is their first nomination. However, they have a long history of supporting queer poets of color who have gone on to receive National Book Award honors, and so I want to give a shout out to them. It's also very special that of the 10 longlisted poets, the 3 that are debut poets were all women of color, and the other 2 women are mothers, which I think should be highlighted and celebrated, since I think that women of color, queer women of color, mothers face more barriers to having a creative practice, having the time and access for support. So being in that community feels very special. And also to be with John Keane, who is one of those elder heroes who won the Lambda Award for the best gay poetry. I'm especially rooting for him.
Yes, very nice. At Happening on Television Network, Hotspots Magazine, Queer News Tonight, we constantly talk about how representation matters. And there can be no greater symbol of the need to focus on representation in our community of lesbians, our women of color, queer identifying people of color, black, brown, trans community. So you represent multiple boxes in that. When you come to the Miami Book Fair and 31 of the 50 of you are in the same place at the same time, as we celebrate at the Miami Book Fair this representation, because this is a first time experience for you, do you have any intrepidation that that you're worthy to be in the room, that you're one of these people? Do you have any concerns about that at all, or you're just I'm here?
Well, I think I have, it's still hitting me, or I'm still adjusting to being part of the National Book Award family, as they say. At the beginning of my tour, at first it was like, oh, what if no one shows up? And now it's like, oh, what if a lot of people show up? So it's definitely a different set of nerves. But poetry it is a smaller audience compared to prose. So I really welcome that engagement, the opportunity to share poetry and have a space for such a large audience to listen, to really complete the circle as a writer, to offer my poems to them is such a huge gift and celebration. So I'm more excited than nervous at this point.
Okay, well, that's lovely to hear. Then after this gigantic event of the National Book Award, the 31 of the 50, in the same room at the same time, you're going to do a panel at Miami Book Fair called Kindred Poets. And you're going to do poetry reading on November 19th, and you're going to participate. One of the poets that you're going to participate with is Gregg Shapiro. And Gregg Shapiro is a regular anchor at Queer News Tonight with me and at It's Happening Out. And I'm curious, as we come back to you, Shelley, in terms of that image, one other thing I want to show, I want to be sure and respect his latest book. He's written 8 poetry books. His Fear of Muses, which is what he is going to be reading from. And if we could come back, as we look at you, I was here at this set table when Miami Book Fair made announcements of participants, and Gregg Shapiro, in the news of him participating in this panel along with you, got tearful and emotional that he could participate with other poets like Shelley Wong, and how excited he was to represent the queer community and the LGBTQ community at the Miami Book Fair. Now he's here in South Florida, and the recognition of the importance of this event for poets is really crystal clear to him. I'm just curious, do you in reading your poetry in this panel for Kindred Poets, do you get nervous? Other poets that are with you, is it something that it gives you some angst, or you just go, no, I got this?
Well, it's so wonderful to hear that Gregg is able to have this opportunity to share his work at the Miami Book Fair. Yes, that will be with Nicole Tallman and Julie Marie Wade, so I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, I would say since my work is as academic staff for a university, which isn't quite as poetic, so yeah, I think I'm always more excited, more than anything, just to meet with poets, whether it's poets I know or poets I don't know, just to be able to gather and share and listen to each other and be inspired and surprised. I feel like it's all positive vibes, and we're here together, and look at all these wonderful people who are here to hear and talk poetry. So it feels very, very precious.
Yes. I think it's interesting. The last thing I wanted to ask you about, in terms of you focusing on your debut poetry collection As She Appears, is your home in San Francisco. San Francisco, for every gay person since Stonewall, we followed the Village People's advice, and we went west. And where we went to was San Francisco. San Francisco is really a heart of capitalism. capital for LGBTQ. We're sitting in South Florida, and most people know, we always make the joke, we're in one of the largest LGBTQ communities in the world here in South Florida, and we always joke in our broadcast that we're broadcasting from the gayest place on planet Earth. I'm curious about South Florida now getting this opportunity to talk, gay guy being able to talk to a queer identifying woman in San Francisco. Does San Francisco have a footprint on you in terms of how you view the world, how you view your queerness, how you represent it in your poetry? Is the city and the heart of the city for LGBTQ influential on you, or it doesn't have much effect for you?
That's a good question. It's actually the 4th time since I lived in the Bay Area, so I keep moving here and away. But I did spend my formative undergrad years at Berkeley, so I do feel like that was my beginning as a young queer woman. And I think definitely nature has a strong presence in my work, but I also think since I grew up in Southern California, there's kind of this pop culture love that is always part of my work. And then I spent my 20s in New York City, where my former partner at the time, worked for Heritage of Pride, the original Pride organization in Greenwich Village. And so that community was also very much a part of me, coming into my identity and strength and power. So I feel like there are many places that have imprinted themselves on me. But as for the Bay having its own particular identity, I think maybe there is this kind of like creative freedom, but also not feeling kind of the hustle bustle pressures maybe of New York or the glamour of Southern California. So maybe kind of like an ease or patience or quietness maybe.
You know, it's very interesting to me, Shelley, because having not been here in South Florida for a long, long time, I can't wait to talk with you on your experience, especially for queer community and LGBT in South Florida. Very much like San Francisco, this is a very relaxed community, not in the hustle and bustle way of New York, and not in terms of the glamour, maybe even pretentious way of Southern California. So you are getting ready to have all kinds of intersection that I think you're going to love. You're going to be direct from the National Book Awards that are going to take place November 16th. This gigantic panel of 31 of the 50 recipients on November 19th at the most important book event, writing event in America, the Miami Book Fair, and participating in the most dynamic LGBTQ book track in the entire world. So we're going to welcome you and celebrate you into the South Florida community for this major event. One last opportunity as she appears, people that are interested in getting your book, where would, I know where you can get it, but where would you recommend first, and where's the easiest, best place of where you would like people to learn more about you and get your book?
Well, I always encourage folks to buy the book through their favorite local independent bookstore. It's also available directly from the press, yesyesbooks.com. And then for more information about me, you can look me up online at shelley-wong.com.
Okay, excellent. And a little secret for everyone, it's something that I constantly hear, and it's why I always ask the question this way. Your independent bookseller is the best place to buy your book, because you're supporting free press and free thought through your independence of your bookstores and your online distributors. If you can't find one or you don't have access, Barnes & Nobles can also help you, and Amazon can also help you. Shelley Wong, we can't wait to welcome you to South Florida. Congratulations again on your recognition for the National Book Award, and we can't wait for you to join us here in South Florida at the most prestigious book event in America, the Miami Book Fair, and we can't wait to meet you.
Wonderful. I look forward to it, Al. Thank you so much.